The world has been whispering something to you since the day you were born. It whispers it through every screen you look at, every social validation system you are embedded in, every subtle cultural message that equates your worth with your visibility, your success with others' recognition of it, your existence with your ability to make the room turn toward you and approve. The whisper says, you need to belong somewhere. You need to be seen. You need the applause, the acknowledgement, the confirmation from the outside that what you are doing matters, that you matter, that the life you are building is real. Because other people have noticed it, and most people spend their entire lives organizing their existence around this whisper. Not because they are weak, but because the whisper is persistent. Because the culture amplifies it at every turn. Because the alternative is something that most people have never been shown is even possible. But there is a different path. It has been walked by the people who built something genuinely significant in every era of human history. Not the people who sought the applause most loudly, but the ones who learned to work without it. Who discovered, in the specific silence of working when no one was watching, a quality of inner power that the approval-dependent person never encounters. Carl Jung, who spent his life mapping the actual territory of the human psyche, rather than the comfortable version we prefer to believe in, described the choice between these two orientations with a precision that has never been improved upon. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. What does it mean to wake up? What does it cost? What does the path actually look like? Not as an inspiring concept, but as a lived practice, a daily discipline, a specific quality of inner work that produces, over time, something genuinely unshakable. That is what we are exploring today. And I want to warn you now, this is not a comfortable conversation. It is an honest one. And if you stay with it to the end, something in the way you understand your own path will have shifted. Let us begin. 1. Removing the masks and facing the shadow. Here is a question most people never ask themselves directly, because the honest answer is more uncomfortable than the question appears to suggest. Who are you when no one is watching? Not the version of you that exists in relation to others' perception. Not the carefully managed presentation, the social self, the assembled performance of adequacy and appropriateness that gets deployed every time another person's awareness becomes a factor, but the actual you, the one that exists in the privacy of your own experience, in the moments when the audience has left and the performance can finally stop. Carl Jung called the social mask the persona, and he understood, with a depth that most psychology before him had not reached, that the problem with the persona is not that it exists, everyone needs one, and the capacity to adapt your presentation to social contexts is a genuine skill. The problem is when the persona becomes so dominant, so continuously deployed, so completely mistaken for the actual self, that the person wearing it loses touch with what lies beneath. What lies beneath is what Jung called the shadow, the accumulated collection of everything you have decided is unacceptable about yourself. The anger you will not admit to, the fear you perform confidence to conceal, the needs and desires and impulses that did not make the cut for the social image, and were therefore pushed below the surface where they continue, with considerable energy, to operate from positions the conscious mind cannot see. Most people spend significant resources keeping the shadow out of awareness, the distraction, the busyness, the continuous social engagement that ensures there is never quite enough silence for the things pushed down to surface. This is understandable. What has been pushed down often feels, when it begins to surface, like something threatening, like something that would compromise the carefully maintained image if it was seen. But here is what I need you to understand about the shadow, because this changes everything. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your unacknowledged power. Every quality you have pushed down to remain acceptable contains, alongside whatever made it unacceptable, genuine energy, genuine force. The anger you have suppressed is also your capacity for genuine boundaries, genuine assertion, genuine refusal of what does not deserve your compliance. The fear you have hidden behind confidence is also your sensitivity, your capacity to feel things deeply, to take things seriously, to be moved by what is genuinely moving. The needs you have denied to appear self-sufficient are also your genuine desire for connection, for meaning, for the kind of contact with life that the performance of self-sufficiency was always preventing. When you stop running from the shadow, when you turn toward it with the honest courage of someone who has finally decided that the performance costs more than it provides, something shifts. The energy that was being consumed in the effort of suppression becomes available for something else. something real. The person who has genuinely faced their shadow is different in quality from the person who has not. Not better in a moral sense. Jung was not making a moral argument, but different in terms of the specific internal resource available to them, the depth, the capacity to remain present in the face of difficulty without the whole carefully constructed edifice needing to be defended. This is where the real work begins, and the real work, unlike the performance, does not require an audience. Stay with me, because what comes next is where the ordinary advice about discipline and routine becomes something considerably more interesting. 2. The discipline rituals that build your inner fortress. Most content about discipline focuses on the external mechanics, the morning routine, the 5 habits of highly effective people, the specific sequences of behavior that, if followed consistently, are supposed to produce the life you want. This content is not wrong. Exactly, the mechanics matter, but it misses something that makes all the difference between discipline that lasts and discipline that collapses after 2 weeks, between the person who genuinely transforms and the person who performs transformation, until the performance becomes too exhausting to maintain. What it misses is the why that makes the discipline internally sustainable rather than externally imposed. Here is the distinction that changes everything. There are 2 completely different relationships to discipline available to any person. The first is discipline as punishment, the forcing of an unwilling self to do what it does not want to do, through the application of willpower and the management of the resistance that arises every time the behavior is attempted. This relationship to discipline is real and produces real results in the short term, but it is expensive because it is always fighting itself, and it tends to collapse under any significant pressure because the resistance it is overriding never actually resolves. The second is discipline as expression, the specific quality of consistent behavior that arises not from forcing yourself to be someone you are not, but from understanding clearly who you are and what the expression of that requires. Not willpower overriding resistance, but genuine alignment between the behavior and the person choosing it. This second relationship to discipline is only available after the shadow work we discussed in the first section has begun, because it requires that you know yourself, actually know yourself, not the performed version, but the actual one, well enough to understand what genuine alignment feels like, what the life that is actually yours, rather than the life you have been performing, actually requires of you. The morning ritual is not a productivity hack in this framework. It is a commitment to meeting yourself before the world has had the chance to tell you who you are supposed to be today. The specific quiet of the early hours before the notifications, before the demands, before the day's accumulated requirements for your attention, is a space that belongs to the work, to the building that is happening not for anyone else's benefit, but for the genuine development of the interior life that is the only foundation worth building on, and the practice of not reacting, of allowing the space between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl identified as the specific territory of human freedom is perhaps the most powerful discipline available, not because restraint is valuable in itself, but because the person who can choose their response, rather than simply having it, is operating from a fundamentally different position than the person who is continuously triggered, continuously reactive, continuously at the mercy of whatever the environment is doing. The gap between stimulus and response is a sword. Every time you choose not to react automatically, every time you allow the triggered feeling to be present without immediately acting from it, you forge something that cannot be taken from you, an inner steadiness that the world's provocation cannot permanently disturb. And here is what I want you to hold as we move into the third section, because what I am about to say might surprise you. The most important thing discipline builds is not the habits, or the routines, or even the results they produce. It is something more fundamental, more portable, and more durable than any of those. 3. Walking alone and learning to laugh. Let me say directly what walking alone actually means, because it is frequently misunderstood in ways that make it sound either more heroic or more isolating than it actually is. Walking alone does not mean contempt for other people. It does not mean the self-congratulating withdrawal of someone who has decided they are too advanced for ordinary human connection. It does not mean the performance of independence, the carefully cultivated image of someone who does not need anyone, which is itself just another form of the approval seeking it claims to have transcended. Walking alone means this: the ability to carry your vision forward, even when no one around you can see it yet. The vision you are building, the specific, personal, genuinely yours direction that your inner work has begun to clarify will not always be understood by the people around you. Often it will not be, not because they are unintelligent or unloving, but because genuine vision is, by definition, something that has not yet materialized. It exists in you before it exists in the world, and asking others to validate something that does not yet exist in the world is asking them to do something they genuinely cannot do. The person who needs validation before they can proceed is permanently dependent on others' readiness to understand something that requires the work to be done before it can be understood, which means they will consistently stop short of the work, waiting for the understanding that only the completed work can provide. The person who can walk alone, who can proceed without the understanding, maintaining the discipline and the direction through the specific uncertainty of a period when the results are not yet visible and the support is not yet available, is the person who gets to the place where the work eventually speaks for itself. And here is the thing about that journey that most people miss. It can be genuinely joyful, not in spite of the solitude, but partly because of it. Because when your joy is not dependent on others' approval of your direction, when your sense of genuine aliveness is not contingent on the room's response to your performance, the joy becomes something considerably more reliable than mood, something more like a quiet, steady relationship with your own experience that does not require specific external conditions to remain available. The ability to laugh alone is not a trivial thing. It is the specific signature of a person whose inner life is genuinely sufficient company, who has developed enough genuine relationship with their own self that the silence is not empty but inhabited. That solitude is not loneliness but presence. This is where the building we have been discussing all leads, not to a destination, but to a quality of being, a way of inhabiting your own life that is genuinely, durably, unperformatively alive. Then what becomes possible from this place, what the work of the shadow and the discipline and the capacity to walk alone makes available, is what the final section is about. 4. The invisible victory. Winning alone. There is a specific kind of victory that most people never experience, because the culture that surrounds them has no category for it. It does not appear on any leaderboard. It produces no visible trophy, no social acknowledgement, no external marker that anything significant has occurred. It is not fit. It cannot be shared in a caption. And it is, in the most genuine sense, available. The only kind of victory that actually transforms you. It happens at 5 a.m. when no one is watching and you do the work anyway. It happens in the moment when the easy response, the reactive response, the response that would have felt satisfying and would have diminished you, presents itself and you choose something different. It happens in the sustained engagement with the direction you have committed to. On the days when the motivation is absent and the results are not yet visible and the only available fuel is the integrity of someone who said they would do this and is doing it. These victories are invisible to the outside world. They accumulate invisibly in the specific quality of the person you are becoming, rather than in any externally observable measure. And because they are invisible, they cannot be manufactured for the sake of appearance. They cannot be performed. They are real or they are not. And the only witness to whether they are real is you. This is the specific power of the invisible victory. It builds something that the visible victories, the ones pursued for recognition, the ones whose value is measured by how others respond to them, cannot build. Because the visible victory is always organized, at least partly, around the external response to it. And the external response, however genuinely gratifying, does not produce the specific inner quality that the invisible victory produces. That quality is integrity. Not in the moral sense, though it includes that, but in the structural sense of the word, the specific completeness of a person whose inside and outside are aligned, who does what they say they will do, not because someone is watching, but because they are, who maintains their standards, not when it is rewarded, but when it is simply right. Jung would recognize this as the product of genuine individuation, not the achievement of a perfect self. No such thing exists, and the pursuit of it is its own form of the same approval-seeking we have been trying to transcend, but the genuine, continuous, honest movement toward the fullest possible expression of who you actually are, toward the life that is genuinely yours, built on the foundation of what you are genuinely capable of when the performance has stopped and the real work has begun. The person who wins this way invisibly, consistently, in the specific discipline of doing the work without requiring the witness, is building something that no external reversal can permanently take. because it is not located in the external world. It is located in the quality of their own relationship to their own choices, in the specific integrity that accumulates, gram by gram, in the unglamorous hours. Discipline gram lala el pisman licton lala. Discipline is measured in grams. Regret is measured in tons. The world will not stop whispering. The culture will not suddenly become less interested in your visibility, your performance, your ability to demonstrate your worth in ways that can be seen and measured and responded to by the relevant audiences. The question is not whether the whisper will continue. It will. The question is whether you will continue to organize your life around it. What we have explored today is the alternative, not as a comfortable promise, but as a genuine, demanding, deeply available invitation. The invitation of the shadow work, the specific courage of turning toward what you have been running from and discovering that it contains the power you thought was only available somewhere outside yourself. The invitation of the inner discipline, not as the forcing of an unwilling self, but as the genuine expression of someone who has found their actual direction and is building daily in its service. The invitation of the solitary path, not the performance of independence, but the genuine capacity to carry the vision forward through the period when no one else can yet see it. And the invitation of the invisible victory, the specific, transformative, permanently yours accumulation of integrity that happens in the hours when no one is watching and you do the work anyway. Jung said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." The awakening is not an event. It is a practice, a daily, unglamorous, private, deeply serious practice of choosing again and again, in the small moments and the significant ones, to look inside, to do the actual work rather than the performance of it, to build the life that is genuinely yours rather than the one that looks correct from the outside. The world does not need to understand how you did it. The people watching do not need to know the source. By the time they see what you have built, you will have been building for years in the silence, and the silence will have given you something that all the noise they were making could never have provided. Let the world wonder. Let them try to understand how. Let them look for the explanation in the visible part of your life, the results, the outcomes, the person you have become. The real explanation will not be there. It will be in the hours they never saw, in the work done without witness, in the victories that were never announced because they were never about the announcement. That is where it will live, in the invisible, private, permanently yours place where the real work is always done. Wake up, walk your path, and when the world looks up to find you somewhere they did not expect, say nothing. Your silence is answer enough.